talk to you all about calcium. A lot of us know that calcium is a very important nutrient for building our bones and overall structure. Everybody's always very concerned about getting osteoporosis or bone thinning diseases. So I get this question a lot where people say, if I give up dairy because I'm allergic to it or I'm sensitive to it or whatever, how am I going to get calcium in my diet? So we're going to talk about what other foods contain calcium, because it's a very common misconceived thing that you can only get calcium from dairy. So calcium in dairy is about 300 units per cup. Okay, so other foods that have that high of a concentration are going to be your really dark leafy greens. Okay, so anything from like mustard greens to kale to collard greens, things of that nature are going to have that like 300 units per cup kind of ratio. So if you're giving up the dairy, definitely try to eat more green leafy vegetables. The other really high dose of calcium that you can get is actually from different kinds of seafood. So things like sardines and salmon and oysters are very high in calcium. So if you're not drinking any milk or eating cheese, then you can definitely get as much calcium as you need from dark leafy greens and seafood. There's also a lot of calcium just in things like beans, some of the grains people eat on a regular basis. A lot of different herbs like parsley are high in calcium, things of that nature. But definitely dark leafy greens, easiest thing to add in, or eat some salmon and you'll be getting the calcium that you need in your diet without dairy. So controversially speaking, dairy actually has a lot of calcium in it, but it's very hard for your body to digest that form of calcium. And a lot of products have calcium carbonate added to it to try to make it look like there's more calcium in that product, but it's not very digestible. The most digestible calcium is going to be in vegetables, because vegetables are alkaline, creates an environment in your stomach that you can digest and assimilate your calcium easily, so that way it can get to where it needs to go and be useful. As opposed to most of the calcium that you get from dairy isn't as useful as the calcium that you're going to get from other products. Going a step further, a lot of people that do struggle with osteoporosis and things like that take a ton of calcium, and then the calcium in their blood work will be super high because they're taking all this and they're not absorbing any of it. A lot of this is because you're taking the calcium carbonate form that's not absorbable. That's reason number one. Reason number two, you might not be putting your bones under enough stress for them to need to build. The body responds to stress. Bones respond to pressure. So if you're putting like more weight on the bones, then they'll respond by building further. So a lot of people need to increase like weight-bearing exercises, or just carrying like a heavy backpack while they walk can help put some extra stress on those bones to help build them up thicker and stronger later on. The last thing I find usually with calcium is a lot of women struggle with it, because after things like hysterectomies or menopause, our hormones change. Unfortunately, you need estrogen to get calcium into bones where it needs to be. So if your estrogen levels are not where they need to be, it's going to be very difficult to get your bones up to a proper standard, because it's hard to get the calcium into the bones. So those are a few things that can be worked on to help increase bone density, get calcium from your diet, and be less concerned about the fact that if you give up dairy that you won't be getting the calcium you need, because you can get just as much from green leafy vegetables.